with plagues or with the sword. But the king of Egypt said, Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work. As if these people belong to him. If they're in slavery, they're my possessions, right? Not God's people. And Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are now numerous and you're stopping them from working. That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and overseers in charge of the people. You're no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They're lazy. That is why they're crying out. Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Make the work harder for the people so that they keep working and paying attention to lies. Then the slave drivers and the overseers went out and said to the people, this is what Pharaoh says. I will not give you any more straw. Go and get your own straw wherever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced at all. So the people scattered all over Egypt to gather stubble to use for straw. The slave drivers kept pressing them, saying, complete the work required of you for each day, just as when you had straw. And Pharaoh's slave drivers beat the Israelite overseers they had appointed, demanding, why haven't you met your quota of bricks yesterday or today or as before? Then the Israelite overseers went and appealed to Pharaoh, why have you treated your servants this way? Your servants are given no straw, yet we are told, make bricks. Your servants are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people. Pharaoh said, lazy, that's what you are, lazy. That's why you keep saying, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. So what kind of accusations we can actually get from people? When you try to worship God, when you try to obey God, you'll be accused, you'll be ridiculed, and you'll be persecuted. But nevertheless, that's what we should choose, because that's how we are created, what we're created to be. And if we miss, the enemy will come around to stop us from worshiping God at all times. His immediate purpose is for us to be distant from God, to be away from God, to make our relationship kind of look distorted so that we would start doubting God, right? That's the first thing, so that he'll have this crack that he can actually work with, that he can open the windows wider, so the gap will be wider, so that we'll be drifted away, right? So then we were willing to make up our mind to worship God. Whatever the distractions come, right, we'll actually fix our eyes upon the cross and worship God. Now get to work. You will not be given any straw, yet you must produce your full quota of bricks. So this is very similar to how the enemy works. Oftentimes the enemy comes to throw to you like all kinds of things that seem to be very important and seem to be very urgent. Now work harder, earn more money, you got to work busier, you got to be a busy person. The spirit of business actually tries everything in order to get you distracted. And I'm not saying do not do diligent work. We need to be diligent, but with the focus, with the sense of aim. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Right? There may be some things that you can actually cut down, and there may be something that's very important that you might be missing out simply because it doesn't give you immediate consequences. Sometimes it doesn't give you immediate result, and it gets pushed aside. And other priorities, seemingly it doesn't seem very important. However, without it, you will not have the foundation. Without it, in the long term, you will start losing. You will not be able to pursue God's purpose further, right? So we need to take care of these things. We need to do these things. And priority, I struggle with that all the time, is but in a limited capacity, I'll share with you what I found out is that for that time period, ask God, what do I need to do? Today, what do I need to do? And according to his guiding, we need to follow his directions. And so how difficult would it be, to try to really tune in? We need to learn to tune in. And I'm in the process of learning as well. Lord, what do you want me to do today? What am I supposed to do today? So that we can hear him. As we tune in, as we learn to tune in, we're going to be able to hear him better over time. Now get to work. You will not be given any straw, yet you must produce your full quota of bricks. See, as I try to worship God, as I try to do God's will, then immediately there's a striking of the enemy. He comes to give you more work, so that it will be unbearable, like that you won't be able to think about worshiping God, right? But in the midst of this, what do? Right? The Israelite overseers realized that they were in trouble when they were told, "You're not to reduce the number of bricks required of you for each day." When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said, "May the Lord look on you and judge you." Lord, judge you. You have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Why, Lord? Why have you brought trouble on this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people, and you have not rescued your people at all. Like, didn't you say that you want to rescue your people, and that's why you sent me there?" There are times when God sends us, and it seems not to be going that way. It seems not to be going that way. But what we need to do, Moses is showing us a model. He goes back to God. He doesn't argue with those people. He doesn't try to persuade them, but he goes to God and he says, "You have not rescued your people at all." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand, he will let them go. Because of my mighty hand, he will drive them out of his country." God also said to Moses, "I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself fully known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, where they resided as foreigners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant." Did God forget for 400 years? No. All along he remembered. He knew. "Therefore say to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you up from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. And I will bring you to the land I swore with uplifted hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you as possession. I am the Lord." The emphasis, I'm the Lord. I'm good. I'm faithful. Don't doubt me. I am mighty. My hands are not short to save you. Trust me. Moses reported this to the Israelites, but they did not listen to him because of their discouragement and harsh labor. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go, tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go out of this country." But Moses said to the Lord, "If the Israelites will not listen to me," because already they started protesting, right? Why would Pharaoh listen to me, since I speak with faltering lips? So, it's not because he had faltering lips that Pharaoh didn't listen to him. but he goes back to his weakness and blaming his weakness, thinking that actually brought this consequence, which has nothing to do with his weakness. It's because God hardened their hearts, and in the end, God wanted to show his omnipotence, his mighty hands, his reversal in the end, that temporarily their hearts were hardened. So oftentimes, I believe that we think to ourselves, because we focus on our own weaknesses rather than what God can do through us, what God has commanded us to do. Because I have these weaknesses, this thing happened. We need to bring the issue up to God and really ask Him, is it because of my weakness that this happened? Did I do anything to make it go wrong? Of course, there are times when we actually make mistakes, but then there are times when things don't go well, things don't go the way we hadn't anticipated. Then we turn to ourselves and say, oh, see, I have these brokenness, I have this weakness that I can't do God's work, right? And to God, our weaknesses actually don't matter. Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron about the Israelites and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he commanded them to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. These were the heads of their families. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn son of Israel, were Hanok and Palu, Hezron and Carmi. These were the clans of Reuben. The sons of Simeon were Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. These were the clans of Simeon. These were the names of the sons of Levi. Very interesting. Okay, so there's a reason whenever a genealogy is brought up. There is a very clear reason. It doesn't come up randomly. Genealogy comes up to show God's work. In the book of Matthew chapter 1, why does it start with genealogy? Well, the book of Matthew, is the targeted audience is Jew. Maybe that's the reason. However, God also had in mind all the readers of the scriptures from when it was written till eternity, right? There's a reason God put it there. Whenever I read the genealogy in the first chapter of Matthew, I'm so moved and touched by how amazing God is. It is a record of how sinful we are, and I'm not trying to put you through a guilt trip, and I'm not masochistic about myself either, but as I get to know God more, as I get to encounter God more, the more of the sinfulness, the more of shortcomings I get to see, and that's why I'm able to say that how sinful we are, because I know that the Redeemer is greater, His grace is greater. Now, the genealogy actually tells me whenever I read it. Of course, each time I get it, I get a different focus and different perspective. But the common reflection, common theme that I get to discover over and over again is God's grace. His relentless love, wanting to fulfill the covenant, fulfill His promises to the Israelites, to the believers, to His children. And to show that He is a God of reversal, to show that He is God of grace and mercy. People like Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, these people, Tamar was a Jew, but she did something unthinkable, like, even to today's standard. And God used that to God allowed them, and saw her zeal to be part of God's family. And Rahab and Ruth, the same thing. Anyone who really wants to be God's family, even if you're outside the laws, outside my covenants, I'll bring you in. I'll let you come in and be grafted into my vine. Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah. It didn't say, okay, David. I'm forgetting what order. So Saul's daughter Michal was the first wife, right? Maybe I'm forgetting if it's the second wife or third wife. Okay, so say David's second wife. No, it didn't say that. Wait, it's after. I'm forgetting the order. Okay, if Abigail came before or after, but anyway, say David's second or third wife. It didn't say that. Uriah's wife. How horrible is it to make it into genealogy and be forever printed and passed down to other people as Uriah's wife, taking Uriah's wife. So it's a record of faithfulness of God in spite of people's unfaithfulness to Him. His covenant lasting in spite of our unfulfilled duties and going astray and going against Him even. And so, and also when he talks about Noah, David, and other individuals, they are not necessarily perfect individuals. I mean, there's no such a thing, but also they're not even excellent, as human beings. They made so many mistakes and they had issues. But in spite of that, like Jacob, heel grabber, in spite of that, God's faithfulness prevails, and He doesn't leave us unchanged. He loves us, and precisely because He loves us, He wants us to be changed. And we become restless with God. I'm going to wrestle with you. Please bless me. I need you, and I'm not going to let you go. Not just for the blessings, but because He's the source of life. When Jacob wrestled with God, I believe that it was not just that he wanted to get something out of God that he wrestled, but he saw that his vulnerable side had to do with the blessing. In the beginning, he and Esau were in the same womb, and they were born almost at the same time. Maybe 2 minutes later, 2 minutes after Esau, Jacob came out. And just because of those few minutes, he became the second son, and he didn't get to inherit the inheritance. And he didn't get to have the spiritual inheritance, which is reserved for the first son. And God had promised to Abraham, which the whole family knew about, including Jacob. He really wanted that spiritual blessing that came through Abraham, probably was going to came through Isaac, and probably was going to given to Esau because he's the first son. And he saw something. I want that blessing. I want to be a blessing, but I don't have a chance. Although, while they were in the mother's womb, it was prophesied that the older will serve the younger, and the younger will be a blessing. But he couldn't wait, and he just saw that, by the human laws, human ways of things that are done, the tradition, I will not get a chance, right? So then he wanted to steal that from Esau. And of course, his mother enabled that. She was a big factor. So they thought in flesh, and they sinned against God, sinned against human. And he had to run away. He had to go through so many times of being deceived in order to become the person that God could use. And now when he was wrestling with God in the river of Jabbok, he wasn't just wanting the physical blessings. He knew, like, he had a distorted desire. I want to be God's channel. I want to be a blessing to others, but that will not come to me just because I was born 2 minutes after Esau. Now, the same desire is in him. Now, after having gone through so much and having wrestled with God in his mind, he came to understand, you know what, the blessings are not according to human order. It doesn't matter if you're the first son, second son, no. God chooses who he chooses, and I want to be chosen by God. And that's why he got wrestled with God. And so when he overcame, because another epiphany, God incarnate allowed him to overcome, allowed Jacob to overcome, in order to give him the name, I have wrestled with God and overcome. So the people in the genealogy in the book of Matthew, chapter 1, are imperfect, far from perfect human beings, and they went through a journey, surrendered to God, and they turned out to be the people that God wanted them to be. And the reason the genealogy comes up in Exodus chapter 6, in the midst of slavery, and people are complaining, what's going on? I mean, this feels so out of context, right? The impression that I'm getting is that while they were in slavery, they did not stop being people of God. Their identity was not changed. They misunderstood their identity as slaves now, slaves to Pharaoh, and this is our destiny. This is what we're made out to be. But the fact is, the truth is, the fact that they were God's people did not change, and God's plan never changed, although it was taking a long time. So I believe that the genealogy that pops up in the middle of the passage signifies that God's plan was there all along. He actually fulfilled his promises with Abraham to some degree, because ultimately it was a prophecy about the Messiah to come. That has not happened yet, but up to this point, God has been faithfully keeping his covenant, is what it says. These were the names of the sons of Levi according to their records: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Levi lived 137 years. The sons of Gershon by clans were Libni and Shimei. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Kohath lived 133 years. The sons of Merari were Mali and Mushi. These were the clans of Levi according to their records. Amram married his father's sister Jochebed. Who bore him Aaron and Moses. Amram lived 137 years. The sons of Izhar were Korah, Nepheg, and Zikri. The sons of Uzziel were Mishael, Elzaphan, and Sithri. Aaron married Elisheba, daughter of Aminadab, and sister of Nahshon, and she bore him Nadab and Abihu. Eleazar, and Ithamar. The sons of Korah were Asir, Elkanah, Abiasap. These were the Korahite clans. Eleazar, son of Aaron, married one of the daughters of Putiel, and she bore him Phinehas. These were the heads of the Levite families, clan by clan. It was this Aaron and Moses to whom the Lord said, "Bring the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions." So God has been faithful, and also, according to his, he didn't pick random people. It was all planned all along. Bring the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions. They were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, about bringing the Israelites out of Egypt. The same Moses and Aaron. Now when the Lord spoke to Moses in Egypt, he said to him, "I'm the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I tell you." But Moses said to the Lord, "Since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me?" Once again, he's turning to his weakness. Trying to actually because I'm skimming through some parts that we already had talked about before, and I'm trying to actually move us through the next chapters if you can. You probably don't want to hear the same message over and over again. So ultimately, what we see is that was not the point, right? Faltering lips never became a hindrance to Moses. The hindrance was him dealing with people, the way he dealt with people. Well, for a good reason, because people protested, and there were many, right? And Moses felt responsible for all the stuff that was happening to the Israelites, and seemingly redemption was not coming, fast enough. And so his struggle is not because he had faltering lips, but rather he struggled believing in God. It was a faith journey that he had to, that his faith that was not mature and solid enough was getting in the way instead of his faltering lips. Then the Lord said to Moses, "See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh. I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to say everything I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his country. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and with mighty acts of judgment I will bring out my divisions, my people, the Israelites. And the Egyptians will know that I'm the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it. They will know that I'm their God." Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded them. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh says to you, perform a miracle, then say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake. So even Aaron was able to do the miracle because God was doing the miracle, right? So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord commanded. Aaron threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same thing by their secret arts. So the Egyptian magicians and sorcerers, they have certain kind of power to be able to do some miracles. And so there's a competition. It reminds me of Elijah against 850 Baal worshippers and Asherah worshippers, false god priests, and the one true priest of God competing against each other. They're doing the signs and wonders, and who's gonna win? Whose prayer gonna be answered? And they're doing the same thing here. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff and became a snake, but Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Yet Pharaoh's heart became hard, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. So here, sometimes, we have a question, like Judas Iscariot, King Saul. The evil spirit fell on them. Are they responsible for their evil actions then? Why did God allow that? I believe that when God hardens people's heart according to scriptures, it's not him making, it's like position. Okay, now I'm gonna just make you as a robot. No, God has made every human being free being with free will. He never moves them like a robot. So in this case, how I read it is knowing God's character and knowing the principles by which God moves. He has given Pharaoh free will. He could have obeyed God's will. However, God allowed him to harden his heart, utilizing his free will. So Pharaoh hardened his heart by his free will. So that's what God allowed him to be. Although the scripture sometimes, because of the wording, we sometimes misunderstand that as, well, how can good God harden people's hearts? He doesn't. I don't think he does. He gives even the worst sinners, even the sinners by definition of the world, he doesn't harden their hearts to make them go down the path of destruction. No, he doesn't want anyone to perish, including Pharaoh. If there's any Egyptian that wanted to become a follower of God, he would not have rejected them. But in this passage, because Pharaoh, remember how he's like, you guys are just lazy. Bring out more work for them. It's not because God made him a robot to do evil things. No, because his heart attitude was, well, I don't fear your God. Whoever your God is, I'm God. Pharaohs have been traditionally gods, and they were revered as such. And that's why there are like pyramids and all that, because they believed in eternity in a distorted sense, that they could take their current positions with them and they'll be kings again, in the heavenly realm, which is not true. And how dare you come to me and demand my slaves, these are God's people? I don't think so. You've been under my control, my ancestors' control over 400 years. I believe what I see. So then I'm not gonna let you go. Just stay. You are supposed to work for me. You know, for economic reasons, I'm not gonna free people. Like there's no human rights whatsoever. Like I don't care how much you suffer, how much injustice has been done to you. It doesn't matter. Work for me. So then God allowed that. God allowed his heart to be hardened. So even in the New Testament scriptures, you can see that God, after people rebelling against him intentionally, although he has warned them so many times and tried to bring them back, if they continually reject, then no, there is a point. Although he's a patient God, he gives many chances, but afterwards, still people choose not to listen to him, then he gives them over to the lusts of this world, of the fallen desires of this world. And so they become even more evil. They have chosen that path, and God tried his best to try to pull them back to his side, but they never would listen. They made up their mind to rebel against God. Then what can God do? He allows them to harden their hearts, and that's what has happened to Pharaoh. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he goes out to the river. Confront him on the bank of the Nile, and take in your hand the staff that was changed into a snake. Then say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to say to you, let my people go, so that they may worship me in the wilderness. But until now you have not listened. This is what the Lord says. By this you will know that I am the Lord. God is so humble. He treats us as if we don't understand. You know, to little kids, what do? Explain to them in the ways that they can. Repeat until they learn, right? God is saying over and over, I'm the Lord, I'm the Lord. He doesn't have to say that, right? I'm your parent, I'm your mom. You don't have to say that repeatedly to your child, right? A king of the earth doesn't have to say, I am the king. Look, I am the king. Do you understand? He doesn't have to go around saying that. But God is doing that simply because his people will not recognize him. And, well, in this case, Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh and the Egyptians did not recognize him. His own creation did not recognize him. And so instead of striking them immediately, he's giving another chance. Look, I told you I'm the Lord. Would you listen to me? With the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water of the Nile, and it will be changed into blood. The fish in the Nile will die, and the river will stink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink its water. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the streams and canals, over the ponds and all the reservoirs, that they will turn to blood. Blood will be everywhere in Egypt, even in vessels of wood and stone. So by them doing certain miracles, going certain places according to God's guidance, all the water, even the water in a water basin, or say if they have a wooden glass or any cup, they have water in here, it'll turn to blood. So there will be no water. That means death, right? Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. He raised his staff in the presence of Pharaoh and his officials and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water changed into blood. The fish in the Nile died, and the river smelled so bad that the Egyptians could not drink its water. Blood was everywhere in Egypt. But the Egyptian magicians did the same things by their secret arts. And Pharaoh's heart became hard. See, my magicians can do the same. Like, what's special about your God, right? to challenge him. He would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Instead, he turned and went into his palace. They did not take even this to heart. And all the Egyptians dug along the Nile to get drinking water, because they could not drink the water of the river. 7 days passed after the Lord struck the Nile. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'This is what the Lord says, let my people go, so that they may worship me.'" See, the reason we're released from sin and death is because we are called to worship him. If you refuse to let them go, I will send a plague of frogs on your whole country. So by the way, there's a frog god in Egypt. Each of this curse that has come upon the Egyptians symbolically refers to the false god of their own, an Egyptian god. For example, the frog god, and they worshipped. But then now God is using them, the symbolic imagery, the actual frogs, to come upon, and then they will become destruction into the bedrooms, into the everywhere. The false god that you believe is going to bring you disaster. So turn from them and turn to God is the message. The Nile will teem with frogs. They will come into your palace and your bedroom, into your bed, into the houses of your officials and your people, and into your ovens and kneading troughs. The frogs will come up on you and your people and all your officials. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, stretch out your hand with your staff over the streams and canals and ponds, and make frogs come up on the land of Egypt." So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land. But the magicians did the same things by their secret arts. They also made frogs come up on the land of Egypt. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Pray to the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people, and I will let your people go to offer sacrifice to the Lord." Moses said to Pharaoh, "I leave to you the honor of setting the time for me to pray for you and your officials and your people, that you and your houses may be rid of the frogs, except for those that remain in the Nile." "Tomorrow," Pharaoh said. Moses replied, "It will be as you say, so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will leave you and your houses, your officials and your people. They will remain only in the Nile." So pray to the Lord. Pray to your Lord. I give. I surrender. Take away the frogs from me and my people, and let your people go to offer sacrifice to the Lord. Yes, I will pray as such, so that you will know that God, our God, is the one true God. After Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh, Moses cried out to the Lord about the frogs he had brought on Pharaoh, and the Lord did what Moses asked. The frogs died in the houses, in the courtyards, and in the fields. They were piled into heaps, and the land reeked of them. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. So the Lord was not hardening his heart, like making him a robot. No, actually, he was able to foresee that the Pharaoh would harden his heart and would not let God's people go. And that's why God told Aaron and Moses that he won't let the people go until the last plague. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the ground, and throughout the land of Egypt the dust will become gnats. They did this, and when Aaron stretched out his hand with the staff and struck the dust of the ground, gnats came on people and animals. All the dust throughout the land of Egypt became gnats. But when the magicians tried to produce gnats by their secret arts, they could not. So up to a certain point, they were able to keep up with Moses and Aaron, imitate or it's an imitation. It's not a real thing. They could pretend to have the same kind of power, but finally they couldn't actually keep up with it. Since the gnats were on people and on animals and everywhere, the magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not listen, just as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning and confront Pharaoh as he goes to the river and say to him, 'This is what the Lord says, let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you do not let my people go, I will send swarms of flies on you and your officials, on your people, and into your houses. The houses of the Egyptians will be full of flies, even the ground will be covered with them. But on that day I will deal differently with the land of Goshen, where my people live. No swarms of flies will be there, so that you will know that I, the Lord, am in this land. I will make a distinction between my people and your people. The sign will occur tomorrow." And the Lord did this, and dense swarms of flies poured into Pharaoh's palace and into the houses of his officials. Throughout Egypt, the land was ruined by the flies. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Go, sacrifice to your God here in the land." Here in the land. While you're still in slavery, while you obey Satan's, the enslaving one's commands, also worship your God. But Moses said that would not be right. The sacrifices we offer the Lord our God will be detestable to the Egyptians, and if we offer sacrifices that are detestable in their eyes, will they not stone us? We must take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifice to the Lord our God, as he commands us. Pharaoh said, "I will let you go to offer sacrifices to the Lord your God in the wilderness, but you must not go very far. Now pray for me." Moses answered, "As soon as I leave you, I will pray to the Lord, and tomorrow the flies will leave Pharaoh and his officials and his people. Only let Pharaoh be sure that he does not act deceitfully again by not letting the people go to offer a sacrifice to the Lord." But Moses left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord. The Lord did what Moses asked. The flies left Pharaoh and his officials and his people. Not a fly remained. But this time also Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not let people go. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'This is what the Lord, the God of Hebrews says, let my people go so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go and continue to hold them back, the hand of the Lord will bring a terrible plague on their livestock in the field, on your horses, donkeys, and camels, and on your cattle, sheep, and goats. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and that of Egypt, so that no animal belonging to the Israelites will die.' The Lord set a time and said, 'Tomorrow the Lord will do this in the land.' And the next day the Lord did it. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one animal belonging to the Israelites died. Pharaoh investigated and found that not even one of the animals of the Israelites had died. Yet his heart was unyielding, and he would not let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, 'Take handfuls of soot from a furnace and have Moses toss it into the air in the presence of Pharaoh. It will become fine dust over the whole land of Egypt, and festering boils will break out on people and animals throughout the land.' So they took soot from a furnace and stood before Pharaoh. Moses tossed it into the air, and festering boils broke out on people and animals. The magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils that were on them and on all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said to Moses. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning, confront Pharaoh, and say to him, 'This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says, let my people go, so that they may worship me. Or this time I will send the full force of my place against you and against your officials and your people, so you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For by now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with a plague that would have wiped you off the earth. But I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. You still set yourself against my people and will not let them go. Therefore, at this time tomorrow, I will send the worst hailstorm that has ever fallen on Egypt from the day it was founded until now. Give an order now to bring your livestock and everything you have in the field to a place of shelter, because the hail would fall on every person and animal that has not been brought in and is still out in the field, and they will die. Those officials of Pharaoh who fear the word of the Lord hurried to bring their slaves and their livestock inside. But those who ignore the word of the Lord left their slaves and livestock in the field. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward the sky, so that the hail will fall on all over Egypt, on people and animals and everything growing in the fields of Egypt." When Moses stretched out his staff toward the sky, the Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning flashed down to the ground. So the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. Hail fell and lightning flashed back and forth. It was the worst storm in all the land of Egypt since it had become a nation. Throughout Egypt, hail struck everything in the fields, both people and animals. It beat down everything growing in the fields and stripped every tree. The only place it did not hail was the land of Goshen, where the Israelites were. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. "This time I have sinned. I have sinned." Pharaoh acknowledged, "I have sinned." He said to them, "The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Pray to the Lord, for we have had enough thunder and hail. I'll let you go. You don't have to stay any longer." Moses replied, "When I have gone out of the city, I will spread out my hands in prayer to the Lord. The thunder will stop and there will be no more hail, so you may know that the earth is the Lord's. But I know that you and your officials still do not fear the Lord God." The flax and barley were destroyed, since the barley had headed and the flax was in bloom. The wheat and spelt, however, were not destroyed because they ripened later. Then Moses left Pharaoh and went out of the city. He spread out his hands toward the Lord. The thunder and hail stopped, and the rain no longer poured down on the land. When Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and thunder had stopped, he sinned again. He and his officials hardened their hearts. So Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not let the Israelites go, just as the Lord had said through Moses. So we can see that God's will is there, and the enemy tries everything in order to show. Repeatedly, there's a cycle. God wants to unfold His plan, but the enemy is there to try to hinder Him. But God has to show greater power in order to let Him know, in order until they submit to His power. So we're going to actually come back to this. after having taken a look at our chapter. So last time we talked about inequity theory and consistency, needing procedural justice and interactional justice needing to be there, right? Let's continue on to talk about expectancy theory. So what is expectancy theory? So each individual motivation, okay? So how is an individual motivated to put more effort or put less effort? It's determined by a rational calculation in which individuals evaluate their situation. So then you see the picture. So here's expectancy. Here's instrumentality. And then valence. So expectancy is the effort that you make. And instrumentality is performance. And then valence is rewards. So these are to know my intentions. For example, say I'm creating content for multimedia project, and these people are actually highly technical. How am I supposed to? This is not a supervisor-employee setting, but in any kind of team setting, like how are you going to communicate to your people who you work with? The more specific guidance and the more specific instructions there are, the better these people tend to respond. Even then, there are some things that need to kind of balance out, or you have to give revised instructions in order for them to actually meet your expectations, right? So you need to communicate clearly. You need to be specific. Maybe you can give an example of how it can be done. There are times when I actually record myself. I'm not a professional, voiceover person, voice actor. I'm not or anything, but just to give them an idea, like this is, what I'm kind of envisioning, so I record myself, or, get a sample of the recording and send it to my people, so that my teammates, so that they can actually have a clearer picture than my verbal messages, because my verbal messages are kind of limited. But multimodal approach gives them a clearer picture of how it should look in the end, right? How it should look and sound in the end. So then there's so much communication that is being done. It doesn't have to be like meetings after meetings, but rather it's how clear it's a matter of how clear you communicate, and the other person learns your style of doing things, communicating. They start to understand what you're expecting of them. So then in a work situation too, supervisor-employee situation, the same thing. If you as a supervisor or manager want your employees to actually come up with a certain result that meets certain standard, then you need to give them clear instructions. This is how it can be done, and this is the process that you need to go through. And in the end, I want to see this happen. Low levels of expectancy may be because employees may feel that something other than effort predicts performance. For example, the employees believe that the work environment is not conducive to performing well, or once again, I don't know if it's a good example, but it is an example, right? Politics plays a bigger role. Like, it doesn't matter like how I perform, or my performance is secondary. You know, my relationship, like the other person has a special relationship with the supervisor, and therefore my performance is not going to be acknowledged and rewarded accordingly. If that is the case, and I'm just giving you one example, if that is the case, then your effort does not predict performance very much. In that case, you're not likely to make that effort, right? So expectancy will also suffer. Some employees may perceive little connection between their effort and performance level because they have an external locus of control, something other than what they're doing. Like my doing actually does not produce, like it doesn't arrive at it doesn't yield the reward that I want. But like no matter what I do, like somewhere down the road, there's a crack, or somebody drops the ball, or somebody who is has more authority and power says like, forget it, start from scratch again. No, don't do it. Yeah, don't do it. Do this again. Nope. Like your plans are like they ditch your plan. So no matter how you put effort into it, like overnight, because of someone who is above you, like changes his mind or her mind, and then you have to come up with a new plan, new proposal, and then even that doesn't go, or you're in the process of making it happen, and toward the latter part of the process, you're about to, come up with the ultimate outcome, and then says, there's an instruction. Oh, sorry, we're changing the plan. So I'm open to flexibility, and flexibility is very important, but if you have a good reason to believe, you have a pattern of switching your mind at the last minute, first of all, it's very inconsiderate, right? And also whatever you say, like although you might not be an expert and the other person is an expert, but you're not willing to take in that, consider the other person's opinion, and so there's a constant clash, and it's not going to last long. Even if the ultimate reward is great, if there's a constant, like if the process is not reasonable, if the process of getting to the end result is not reasonable, something other than my effort is a predictor of the performance, a predictor of the reward, predictor of the outcome, then you're not likely to put in that effort, right? Some employees may perceive little connection between their effort and performance because they have an external locus of control, low self-esteem. Even if I say Moses, well, they're like this because of my faltering lips. Oh, they don't listen to me because of my faltering lips. No, it's because they have hardened their hearts, and in spite of your faltering lips, God has a way of working his way. And so Moses didn't see that, and hopefully long into his journey, he's not saying that anymore. He's not talking about his lips anymore. Or other personality traits that condition them to believe that their effort will not make a difference. Pessimistic personality. Some people, for whatever reason, they tend to perceive the reality from a very negative perspective. If you're in a dark season, I understand that your perspective can be darkened by that. But some people actually see the reality as more as darker than it is, And even if I make an effort, like it's not going to pay back, maybe. I don't want to be judgmental because each case is different, but there are some cases when these people were constantly discouraged for a long period of time, for whatever the circumstances were, and then their efforts actually did not pay back, right? Pay off. Then they tend to believe that even if I make effort, like somebody else is going to take credit, or even if I make effort, not very much of good will happen. It'll go unnoticed, or it'll some other people who, although they're not making as much effort as I am, they somehow get the attention and acknowledgement, and they get promoted and things like that. If their perception for some reason is like that, then they're not likely to put in the effort, right? Influencing instrumentality perceptions to connect pay and other rewards to performance using bonuses or systems and merit. Influencing valence. Employees tend to be more motivated if they find the reward to be attractive. So like we talked about different people, like some people have achievement. So we can actually integrate some of the theories and actually apply that to our real situations. Some people are motivated by achievement, right, and acknowledgement. Other people are motivated by people liking them, relational aspect to it, spending more time with family as a reward, things like that, right? Still other people, they have a need for the power. And so then if you perform well, we'll put you in a position of power, and so if they see their valence is attractive, then they'll be motivated. Ensuring high valence involves getting to know a company's employees. So like you got to know your people, right? Which takes time and effort. Giving employees a choice between multiple rewards. So among all these things, 2-3 options, like which one would you like to choose? Giving them options, right? And then there's reinforcement theory. Ivan Pavlov and B.F. Skinner, classical names. Behavior is a function of its outcomes. So just like a dog, salivation, like if you give them food, they'll start salivating. So Ivan Pavlov actually came up with this classical conditioning, right? Where the dog is there and there's food, then he's going to salivate. But I'm using just the general word. It could be any dog, right? And operant conditioning is if you ring a bell, ding, and then you give him food, then this dog salivates. Now, although the food is not given, because that pattern has been repeated. Like whenever you ring the bell, and then give him food. So dog now understands that when the bell rings, the food is going to be offered to me. So when you ring the bell, though the food is not there, the dog salivates, right? So that's operant conditioning. Now B.F. Skinner, so there's a common like a series of cause and effect behaviors. The behaviors antecedents and consequences are determined. Applying reinforcement method, evaluating and maintaining. So very sorry to say, human beings are more complex and a lot more dignified than a dog, but utilizing the same kind of concept. Say this person so your team overall, your team on average, majority of the members actually are relational, and they value a relational aspect to it. So they actually want to spend quality time with the supervisor who has the wisdom and the capacity to care for them and all that. So and then with each other. You know, some other time, like working together is also wonderful, but then they want to just relax and spend time together. That's what they really value. Maybe this is a good community, and so if you don't feel a sense of community there, then you wouldn't want to spend time with them. But say they want to spend time together, having fun. So then after this project is completed successfully, if we have reached a certain performance level, then we're going to actually celebrate it together. You know, bring out your family members. You guys are all relational. Bring out all your family members, and we're gonna actually celebrate together. My great grandfather was a businessman, and back in those days, it was a Chosun dynasty, of course, before Republic of Korea, and he was a successful elite leader and a businessman. He had many servants in the house, and the servants in the past in Chosun dynasty, they were treated less than human beings. They were properties, right? Pretty much how they were considered, how the slaves were considered in the Old Testament era. And so my great grandfather, say his name is Hyun, and his middle name is Hyun. So say my great grandfather Hyun actually, I would say Mr. Yoon, out of my respect for him, Mr. Yoon actually understood this motivation. He did not study. Back in those days. So he grew up receiving education. However, he left home because the family, just like the Jewish family too, Israelites, if there are sons that are not in place, then your family starts going downhill, and they went downhill. My great grandfather actually resolved to go outside to become successful and restore the family honor back and make their family life more stable. So at the age of 14, I'm forgetting the exact age, I think it was like 14, he said, "Mother, please allow me to go outside, explore the world. I'll be a successful businessman. You know, come back and serve you. Please bear with me." And so his mother allowed that. He didn't have a father, right? And that's why he had to be an entrepreneur. So he went out. He became very successful. He came back, and of course, fed the family. He was very creative in his approach. He ended up having several factories. Back in those days, it was when the Industrial Revolution is taking place, I believe, and Korea was very much not developed. Korea had its doors closed, like a closed door policy, and seclusion policy, and they did not open up their doors to outside forces, outside power, and therefore they were very, very not much developed. And he's the one so around the time, I believe that the country started to open up a little more, and he brought in machines and tools from Germany and other countries, and he actually set up factories for family business, and he hired employees, and in his house there were servants. Servants usually, they were like slaves. They would get married within the household. They would help the children. Their children would grow up in the same household. So like he had, I don't know how many, but tons of servants and their families. And so one of the things that he did was at that time, Korea was undergoing poverty. Few people could eat, and they went through horrible times, like Japanese occupation and all that. They did horrible things to the country. It was stricken with poverty. They took away all the crops, all the resources, ruined all the historical sites and records, for their own purpose, to make it like they, as invaders, have superior culture and history, and they're the ones who actually helped Korea modernize, which is completely a lie. So the country was completely destroyed, and people were starving. So there were beggars on the streets all the time. In his household, every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, beggars would actually crowd in. And even the servants, because they were serving like a very powerful family, they despised the beggars, and they would bring in like leftovers, and then they would just toss them out. Then my great-grandfather would say, Mr. Yoon would say, don't treat them like that. Bring them in. Let them wash their hands. Give to them a separate table, proper dish and bowls. And the servants are like, why do we have to do that? Like, they're lesser than human beings, Why do we have to do that? And they would protest, but then, there's so much that you can protest, like you're a servant. So the landlord is saying, go ahead and treat them with respect. And so crowds of beggars would get in, and then they were given rice, which was very hard to find back in those days, right? And some side dishes. I heard that at that time people were able to eat meats only once a year, maybe, but his family was able to have like cows, pigs, very so often. And so they would take like once every month or something like that, they would take the entire group of servants to a mountain to just let them enjoy their family time. But it's unheard of. Like servants, once again, they don't have a break. They don't have a vacation. They're not hired. They're not employees. They're servants. They're slaves. So he would take them out to a mountain, bring your entire family, like your little kids, and then he would have cows, slaughtered to feed them with meats, and that was a way to give them a time of break, family time, enjoyment, being well fed, and then they're motivated to serve better. And so that's one of the things that he did, which was very countercultural. Never heard of that kind of case, but he treated his servants very nicely, and there was so he treated them with care, and their kids all received privilege of being educated, being growing up in a nice place, having a chance to go to school, having a chance to their doors are open, like their future doors were open. My great grandfather also established a few schools, because many public schools, many people were uneducated, and he wanted the grassroots people to have access to education, and so he established schools, and he utilized his wealth in order to contribute to society. Now, reinforcement methods. So although we don't utilize like ringing bell, giving food, no, to dogs, no, but then this way of treating them with care, and they were anticipating, toward the end of the month, we're actually going out to enjoy, so let's work hard while we can. there were servants who actually really respected my grandfather, that he was just willing to do anything for him. Very, very faithful servants. Um, how do you motivate people when they feel they're cared for? When they by a pattern, when they know that your Lord actually takes care of you, and they tend to be really loyal to them. So ethical behavior is one that is learned as a result of the consequences following one's actions. So it's very important when you're little to learn how to engage in ethical behaviors. Unfortunately, in many of the households, well, I can't say many. In some of the households that I've seen, lying is encouraged. If you lie and just get by, then you're okay. Versus if you tell the truth, then there's physical punishment and there's cursing, abuse. Then you learn to not tell the truth, to engage in lying, covering up. So depending on what, it's very important to create an atmosphere, environment conducive to honoring and encouraging honesty and ethical behaviors. The importance of rewards and punishments, the severity of expected punishment, the perceived likelihood of punishment, they all contribute to motivate or demotivate ethical behaviors. So then, how are you going to actually utilize these theories into your educational setting? Especially if you're dealing with younger children, but also this applies to adult setting too. But adults are a little more, they can be a little more complicated, so then you want to be a little more thoughtful in thinking about how to motivate them. All right, and then that was so much about motivational theories, and let's move on to chapter 4. So personality, behavioral styles, and motivation. DISC analysis. Okay, so DISC, what do they stand for? So this is dominant. And then inspiring. Supportive. Cautious. So there are people who are dominant type, and because of their personality, they're motivated by certain things, right? Motivated by solving problems. I feel the thrill. I feel just self-rewarded. Like nobody says anything, but I feel rewarded by solving problems. Conquering challenging situations. Like there were so many barriers, but we as a team overcame, and I led it. That feels really good. Getting results. Once again, like there's a performance level that you need to achieve, or a certain score that you have to achieve, or so many things that you need to get done within a given time, and you got the result, and it feels good. These are dominant people, and your personality is a double-edged sword. Once again, your strongest strength can be your greatest weakness as well, right? Your greatest strength can be your greatest weakness. So the dominant people, although they enjoy solving problems and achieving results, the flip side of the coin is if you're not careful, then you can kind of ignore other people's feelings, or if they are actually keeping up with you, or if they feel lost, then you're just getting ahead of other people. So there are strength and downside to each personality. And there another kind of people, they are inspiring, in personality. What are they motivated by? The opportunity to interact with others. So I think I talked about my great grandfather taking the people out to have I would say it's a barbecue party, right? in an ancient sense. Those people who are relational, like you can take your team. You guys, if you reach certain performance level, or like hit certain number with your work, toward the end of the month, we're gonna take you out. We'll take you out, have a time of enjoyment. One of my former supervisors. I was pretty young back then. That was one of my first jobs. Now, we had a conference, like a training conference, where managers from different sites and their assistants actually gathered. All the sites from different countries in a region actually gathered in the headquarters, and they were trained. And it was pretty intense, all day long. And and then it's bringing back memories. And then we went from one department to another to be trained. And toward the end of the week, the director of the entire region actually took us out to a fun time. Just going to a mall. There was a mom of a little baby, and she was having her fun. Like she jumped up on this DDR, like she was like jumping up and down. We had fun watching her, and then another manager, financial manager, he actually took us to some strange places, trying to expose us, like, because we were very young, actually, in our early 20s, although we were managers. He took us to different places to help us have exposure. And they tried to give like life advice and things like that. And basically the reason is because we had a pretty intense 5 days, I believe. And then the 6th day, before we went back to our countries, he wanted to make sure that we had some downtime, celebrating our hard work, and just having achieved a certain level of performance, even in the time of training. And so something like that you can actually try. Like if they are relational people, if they're rewarded by certain things, then that mom, when you were baby, she certainly felt rewarded by just jumping on the DTR. She was just releasing all her stress, right? So inspiring people are motivated by the opportunity to interact with others, and by public recognition. Public recognition, I think it motivates many people. Whether you are, whether you're D or I or S or C, I think public recognition is always helpful. In varied activities, these people are inspired by varying activities. And so if you give them fun assignments, or various exposure, that'll be motivating to them. And supportive people, they're motivated by teamwork, the opportunity to help others. You just feel inherently, without other people recognizing or without other people doing big things in return, you just feel good by helping other people, right? And feeling appreciated for their contribution. So if there's appreciation, then it's a major plus. It's bringing back memories from my past clients. Now, cautious, motivated by structuring or organizing things. So these people, well, cautious might have some connotation, right? You're too careful, but these people, well, they can be careful, but then they're motivated by structuring or organizing things. It's beneficial to the entire team. Researching or searching for information. Finding the right solution for a problem. So dominant people, they feel rewarded by conquering challenging situations, solving problems because they solved a difficult problem. It's rewarding. Versus cautious people finding the right solution by searching the right thing, by finding the right path, that's rewarding to them. So then, how are you going to identify these people, and then how are you going to actually motivate them? That's important. 4 behavioral styles: analytical, amiable, driver, expressive. So each of these people have skills, right? And also, as much as they have strength, there's always downside, right? For example, let's say intuitive people. Intuitive people are very intuitive. Their gut feelings are oftentimes right, and they can be very fast in responding to situations. However, their gut feelings can be seriously wrong, and it can bring really negative consequences as well. So you need to be careful. So there's always a downside, right? So then, how do you foster the environment conducive to growth? Self-esteem. How do you boost self-esteem? So I talked about this in other classes, but if you're new to the class, then self-esteem, low self-esteem is really bad. Too high of a self-esteem, according to the research, is bad. Inflated self is bad. But you've got to have the right view of where you are. So being accurate in your perception of how you're doing is the healthiest self-esteem. So both inflated self-esteem and low self-esteem lead to destructive results. Locus of control. It is the best if the team is there, if the team who is going to actually tackle the project is there. Give them as much control as possible is the best. If they have certain expertise, if they have certain, if they're responsible, if they have certain maturity. When kids are immature, like when a 3-year-old, has not learned to, let's say she just goes around randomly, touches certain things, not complete the work, and then goes off to do another thing and things like that. You can't give her too much, right? You can't give her too much control, but you have to really guide them. But if you have a team of people with certain expertise to some degree, and if you have trained them enough, then you got to give them some control. Otherwise, if there's a control, like the control is with you and the team, whatever they do, they don't have control over. That's a really not helpful setting. It's not going to last long. It's not going to help your organization develop. Internal, external. Introversion, extroversion. So introverts tend to focus their energies inwardly and have a greater sensitivity to abstract feelings. They can be more self-aware, right? They tend to be more sensitive. They tend to be more reflective, versus extroverts direct more of their attention to other people, objects, and events. Authoritarianism and dogmatism. Authoritarianism, an individual's orientation toward authority. So authoritarianism says demanding, directive, and controlling of her subordinates. And then, submissive and deferential towards superiors. So it works both ways, right? Intellectually rigid, fearful of social change, highly judgmental and categorical in reaction to others. Like, I should laugh at those people who try to figure you out, and then they label everything like, oh, so you are this, oh, you're that, I know you're kind of people. When human beings are a little more complex than that, and just with the shallow knowledge of the other person, you can't say, oh, you belong to this box, and these are the boxes that I know, I don't know anything else than that, so I'm going to just put you into these boxes. Boxes are there to help you organize your thoughts, to be able to come up with the ways to relate to other people. So it helps you, it's a helpful tool. However, if you just have a tendency to really categorize people, you may miss the target really seriously at one point. And so we want to think outside the box, and we want to not limit ourselves to the categories that we know. We need to expand that category. We need to understand that human beings are not fixed, and they're you can put them into boxes. You may find certain attributes, certain characteristics to a person, but then if you try to put them into the boxes, you may make a serious mistake, and it won't help the other person. It won't help you. And then sometimes we misread other people's signals, and then we can make a serious mistake as well. And then we're making a mistake and we don't realize that we are. So then we need to really humbly turn to God and ask Him, is there anything that I'm doing wrong that is not helpful to myself and to others? Distrustful and hostile. So we don't want to be authoritarian, right? Dogmatism, it's closed-mindedness and inflexibility. making judgments quickly based on limited information with a high degree of confidence. And this is also very dangerous, right? Dependability. Dependability, I mean, if you're seen as self-reliant, responsible, consistent, and dependable, that's a good thing, right? But then the flip side of the coin is, are you, but you might have to be kind of good with your boundaries, and also don't overly trust yourself. There needs to be interdependence when we do our work or live our lives. Having said that, let's close with a prayer.